All right. We should be recording. Do you see that it's recording?
Alrighty. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. As many of you know, here at UNM, we are looking at upgrading, re-implementing, I don't like that word, but moving to the next, the version 10 of Sharewell is what we're looking at now. Part of that project will be to really utilize the CMDB portion of Sharewell much more than what we're doing today. So if you heard the chit chat between Mike and Sue, Mike's been around UNM for 10 years. He was here, him and Steve led the project to implement Sharewell initially between the hospital and UNM. A couple years later, UNM decided to separate and kick off their own version. And we could talk about that later. But so Mike's very familiar with what we're doing here. He is, and I will go ahead and let him introduce himself because he's actually had quite a career with Sharewell as well.
Well, awesome. Thank you, TJ. Again, this is Mike McMullen with Sharewell, now Unused Software. I've been here with the organization for just over 12 years now. I spent most of my career within the organization within professional services. So I have implemented Sharewell for many of our largest and most strategic customers, like right there at UNM 10 years ago. Just a couple years ago, I did make a move from professional services. I had many different positions within professional services, and I made a move over to the pre-sales side. To support Jeremy Riddle in the field. And Jeremy Riddle is your account executive. And it's a real pleasure to be here today and to have this CMDB discussion with the team at UNM. I'm going to pass it over to Jeremy Riddle, and I'll allow him to introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy, as Mike said. I've been with Sharewell almost 3 years and have had the pleasure of supporting UNM last year, working with Elaine and TJ and trying to ensure that they've got what they need and your team has what they need. But we did do Tech Days last year and we're invited back this year. So thank you for the opportunity to come back. With TJ's and Elaine's direction and kind of with where the team is at today, they thought it would be a good use of the time to spend around the CMDB and what we offer from, a asset lifecycle perspective. And so we're going to do that today here. With 30 some odd folks in the session, it is more of a formal setting, but Mike and I would like to make it interactive as possible. So as we go through this, please let us know if there's questions and feedback, and we'll take those as they come. And Elaine and I will be monitoring the chat as well. Mike, back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. If I can advance my slides. So the agenda that we're going to go through, we're going to talk about improving the visibility and lifecycle management, talk about managing configuration items from planning to retirement, and really kind of start to focus in on the value beyond IT by extending the CMDB to non-IT assets. We're going to talk about software asset management, and software asset management can easily be obtained, and you can do that with a product offered called Sharewell Asset Manager. So we'll talk a bit about that product as well. And then we'll go into a demo and discussion around Sharewell Asset Manager and the Sharewell CMDB. So configuration management, probably a good place to start is with some ITIL definitions. A configuration item, a CI, you're going to hear that over and over again. Really, that's any component or resource that is that's managed by IT or that's managed in order to deliver an IT service. Configuration management Configuration management is the process that's responsible for maintaining information and attributes around the different configuration items. And of course, then we have the CMDB. And the CMDB within Sharewall is meant to be a single source of truth around all configuration items, and their life cycle, their attributes, and even relationships, dependency mapping around all the configuration items that you're tracking within your environment. We do see an expanding or a broadening use of departments that are actually taking advantage of the CMDB. People who need information around CIs. It could be the security team, procurement, asset management, of course, IT operations, auditing and compliance. The service desk is one of the heaviest users of any CMDB. Yeah, business. I'm sorry?
CMDB database? CMDB.
The CMDB database, I couldn't quite catch that. But these are the users of the CMDB database. That's correct. Of course, your enterprise architecture team, even HR, financial planning, facilities, and a growing list of departments, all need information about the configuration items that we're tracking and relationships and dependencies and, financial information, which is all available within your CMDB. So new challenges within a CMDB, traditionally, the focus was on your data centers, your network, and the PCs within your network. Most of the assets traditionally that you were managing were all under the control of your organization. And it was relatively static CIs with very long refresh cycles and very few suppliers. However, today, the CMDB and the information that you're wanting to track is much, much more complex. We have a rapidly changing set of software, a rapidly changing set of hardware, data, external services, and of course, dependencies. CIs now include and go way beyond, what is under the control of the organization. And especially, today with work from home and, people bringing their own devices. We're needing to track services and offerings from SaaS providers and cloud-based components as well. And with digital convergence, everything is becoming a configuration item. So a new perspective, we need visibility of CIs across the entire enterprise. Within an organization of your size, you probably have many different CMDBs across the infrastructure, right? And depending on what type of information that you need, you're going to, the appropriate source for that data. It could be from discovery tools to Excel spreadsheets that are managed across the organization. And with your CMDB initiative, it's going to be essential from the start to have automation and integration to determine what all of those, those different sources, those different CMDBs are, through those different discovery tools. And then, of course, performing correlation to make sure that we're collecting the right attributes from the right data sources. And really what we want to do is we want to enrich and populate in your Sharewall CMDB. We want to make a single source of truth for all configuration items that you're wanting to track within the organization. One of the challenges is many of these different configuration items have different life cycles, between software, hardware, different services, and subscriptions that you're tracking. It is all highly dynamic and, has a highly dynamic set of dependencies and life cycles. And so with Sharewell, you are able to set up different life cycles and different stages for each and every different type of CI that you're managing. The other thing to take into consideration is we want to make sure that we're providing the best view for the various users that are going to be taking advantage of the information within the CMDB. What the service desk is concerned about is going to be different than maybe what IT operations is looking at or what procurement is looking at. So we really want to, focus in on which departments, which groups of people are going to be using the CMDB and how are they going to be using it. And of course, we really need to expand the spectrum of the CMDB, or many organizations are expanding the spectrum of the CMDB. With BYOD, with the
you want small, medium, or large?
With the Internet of Things.
So let me show you.
And if we could go on mute, unless you have a question or comment, that would be fantastic. But we really need to track and know and understand dependencies between all of the different types of devices, whether it's BYOD, the Internet of Things,
So it's like
cloud connected equipment, and even facilities devices.
Yeah,
right?
Mish, can you please put yourself on mute?
Oh, yeah, I guess it's just the one size.
Hey, Mike.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Hey, folks on the UNM side, we're getting a lot of feedback and some conversation and chatter. Can folks please put themselves on mute? Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Sorry, it's Alicia. One thing I was trying to mention there is that if you guys are the host of the meeting, you can usually mute everybody.
Yeah, Mike, you're gonna have to do that. I'm sorry, since I'm not the host, but you are, so. If you could.
Yes, I'm looking for that option.
I couldn't find it either.
So Mike, if you go to participants, if you can find the area that says participants, it should bring up a separate column in your screen.
Oh.
And then you've got a listing of folks. You should see some microphones, and you can select those microphones, and it should put the folks on mute.
Awesome. We got it. Thank you so much, Sterling. All right. So expanding the view or the use of the CMDB, you can even expand into non-IT assets. Facilities has so many high-value non-digital assets that are critical to track. This is going to help improve availability and to share and reuse these different resources. By applying the CMDB to all things important, we can have better reliability, safety, and cost. Next, we're going to start talking a little bit about software asset management as well. And how you can achieve software asset management is with a tool called Sharewall Asset Manager. One of the benefits of software asset management, so many organizations are being audited. 50% of all customers will be audited by Microsoft within the next 3 years. And typically, especially when it's time to true up with Microsoft, so many organizations, they don't have control. They don't have an understanding of what's deployed within their environment, that all they can do when they get their true up agreement from Microsoft is essentially just pay the bill, right? Or if you're wanting to be prepared for an audit from the BSA or anybody else who may be performing an audit, software asset management can help you be prepared and can dramatically reduce spending on software. Another benefit to software asset management is to standardize the applications and the versions that are deployed within your environment. By standardizing the applications and the versions that are in use within your environment and the vendors that you're working with, you can dramatically reduce the cost to support, especially old versions of tools and products. Sharewall Asset Manager would help you to properly identify all of your software titles and bundle it together in suites. So we actually have one of the largest normalization engines, and we properly identify and normalize all the data that we collect about the software titles and suites that are discovered within your organization, making it extremely easy to report on those titles and products that you have deployed. We can track software and hardware entitlements, you know, those purchases, maintenance agreements, contracts, leases. And we can automatically reconcile those entitlements, automatically reconcile those purchases to what we discover that's deployed from, you know, from scanning the environment, and automatically tell you whether or not you are properly licensed based on what's deployed and what has been purchased by UNM. So if we're looking at Sharewall Asset Management, you know, what Sharewall Asset Management can discover, we can discover all of your Windows-based devices, all of your Linux, Unix, and Macs, all of your network devices, anything with SNMP enabled. We also discover, you know, your virtual environments as well, you know, through Microsoft Hyper-V, VMware, even Citrix. We even map those virtual environments back to their host. So we will actually discover and perform a dependency mapping of host to virtual guest relationships for those virtualized machines. All the information that is collected from Sharewall Asset Manager, all of this information can be used to enrich and populate in the Sharewall CMDB. So all of that, your hardware inventory, your software inventory. We even collect software usage. You can turn metering on for specific applications that you're wanting to monitor the usage of those specific applications. And all of that software usage data can be enriched into the CMDB as well. We will populate in login information. So you can look at a machine within the CMDB and at a glance look at who has been logging in and who has been using that particular machine. And like I mentioned, we bring in all of those virtual host guest relationships as well. So how does it work? So within the Sharewall Asset Manager, we will do an Active Directory discovery to gather all of your Windows-based PCs, laptops, even servers. Whenever we discover a host, we will go ahead and scan that host and discover which virtual guests are sitting on top of that host. For your network-based devices, we will do an SNMP discovery. It's an agentless discovery to bring in all of the information about all of your SNMP-enabled network devices. For your Linux, Unix, and Macs, we will do an SSH discovery, and that is an agentless discovery as well, and bring back all the information around your Linux, Unix, and Macs. And if you have Oracle databases out there, we will scan those Oracle databases. We'll do an Oracle database discovery and gather all of the licensing information around those Oracle databases as well. For all of your Windows-based devices, you know, my recommendation is to always use the agent and deploy the agent to all of your Windows-based devices. You can deploy that agent through group policy, through software deployment tools like SCCM. It doesn't have to be SCCM, but any tool that can deploy an application, you can use to deploy the CAM agent. You can also use the CAM administrative service to deploy that agent as well. By deploying that agent, again, the benefit to that is we're going to gather all of the usage data for whichever applications that you're wanting to meter. All of that information is fed securely back into the CAM database over secure communications, over HTTPS, through the CAM access point. Now, if you did not want to deploy that CAM agent to your Windows-based devices, if you do have SCCM deployed, we have an SCCM connector, and we can use SCCM to port in and import in all of your Windows-based devices. The benefit there is we're still going to go through and normalize all of those software titles and suites, making it very easy to report on and start to look at what you have deployed within your environment. However, with that SCCM connector, you do lose the ability to meter. You lose that software usage information that we're able to gather. And so next we'll move into a demo of, we'll talk about the Sharewall CMDB and take a look at Sharewall Asset Manager. Before we do, does anybody have any questions, comments, or feedback?
Mike, there's a question in the chat. Marcus wants to know the definition of normalize.
Of normalizing those software titles. So if you deploy a tool like SCCM, it's going to look at header information within the executables that are found on that machine, and depending on the media, depending on where you install that application, it can come back. Adobe can come back in so many different ways, and so it can make reporting on a specific application extremely difficult. Because if you're having to search for Adobe Inc. or just Adobe or Adobe with the version number at the end. Again, it becomes extremely difficult to truly report and tell how many instances and versions of that specific software title or suite that you're trying to report on. So by normalizing all of your software titles, we're making sure that that information, no matter what the install source was or the media used to install it, is going to be normalized and it's all going to match. So a simple query will allow you to bring back and report on how many versions or how many installs of Adobe Creative Cloud that you have within your organization. Was that the only one in the chat, TJ?
Yes, and Marcus said thank you.
You are welcome. Any other questions, comments before we move on? TJ, anything that I missed or that you would want to add in before I move into the demo?
No, just chuckling about the Sharewell Asset Management, just so everyone knows we did get a quote on it.
Awesome,
So
awesome.
something that we may utilize in the future.
Yes, Sherwood Asset Manager is not a tool that you have today, so this is an additional SKU. So just wanted to make sure that you had all the information on, what we're able to provide you with. Here, I'm just going to go ahead and bring up the reporting engine within Sherwood Asset Manager. One of the critical components of performing reports or running any of these reports is to make sure that we have the correct filters selected. You can come in, you can build your own filters and really drill down into whatever information that you're wanting to report on. So you may want to be reporting for specific groups or departments, specific manufacturers of applications, or for specific license types, or maybe only applications that are metered where we're gathering that usage data. So you can come in and define all of these attributes that you're going to want to report on, save your filter, and then you can come back and run your reports using that specific filter. One of the reports that I find that is extremely valuable is just performing a quick disk drive summary report. As somebody's disk drive fills up, they're going to experience errors, experience issues, right? And they're probably going to be calling the service desk. So to be able to proactively take a quick look at, and you can sort any of these reports just by clicking on the header, and you can very, very quickly look at whose hard drive is nearly full. Another report that I typically like to bring up is just a machine list report, just showing you the attributes and the data that Sherwood Asset Manager is discovering and pulling back in. And just remember, all of this data is used to enrich the CMDB within Sherwood as well. So I'll just drill down into one of my machines, and my machine names are funny in the login information. User 1234, all this data has been normalized or has been sanitized. So that's why my machine names are like that. But of course, I can look at, the domain, all the information that we discovered around the PC. This happened to be a virtual machine. So I can look at that information. I can look at the drive disk space summary. If we had the purchasing information within Sharewall Asset Manager, I would see all of the purchasing details around this particular machine as well. I can see all the services that are running on this machine. We can come in, we have all the network adapters and any custom WMI information that you're wanting to bring in as well as a list of all of the applications here at the bottom that have been deployed on this particular machine. And TJ, remind me, is being compliant, is knowing which applications and understanding if you're properly licensed for those applications, is that important to UNM?
Oh, yes.
Awesome, awesome. One report that I love is the Am I Compliant report. So I'm going to drill down into Am I Compliant? And what we're looking at here is we're looking at all of your purchasing information. And based on the information that we have scanned, all the applications that we have discovered that are deployed within your environment, we're determining all of the areas where you're not compliant. So here I have a list where I'm out of compliance. I can look at, what the difference is, how many licenses I would have to purchase in order to true up on each of these applications. This is all based on the purchasing information, because we do need to import all of your entitlements, all of your historical purchases to be able to tell you whether or not you are compliant for your different applications. Now, instead of just going in and truing up for each of these applications, I do have metering enabled. So I do have that usage information. So if I want to drill down in here into 7-zip, I can drill down and I can see all of the different versions that are deployed. I can go in and start to look at which machines are they deployed to. But down here, probably what's more important is I only have 4 machines that are actually using the application, right? So rather than truing up, I may just decide, hey, you know what, these machines that do not have usage, we can drill down into these machines and look at who the machine is assigned to. And we could remove this application from these machines rather than truing up. For the machines that do have usage, I can drill down and start to look at all of the usage information that we're collecting. For each session, each time the application is used, we're gathering who was logged in, who the user was that actually launched the application, when that session started, when it ended, the total time that it was used. We even track how much time it sat idle. If they opened it up and it sat idle the entire time, maybe there isn't a value there of keeping the application for them. And again, I can continue to drill down into these machines. If I wanted to see who it was assigned to, or if I wanted to see who's logging into that machine to assist with removing the application from those specific machines. Another report that I really like is, for troubleshooting, I have a what's changed report. So we can take baselines, we can take snapshots, at any point in time within Sharewall Asset Manager, and then we can start to report on from one baseline to the next, what has changed. We can do what's changed by either software or hardware. So we can look at software, hardware that's changed from a specific point in time to the next point in time. I can simply click here on change baseline to change my time frame that I'm looking at, here within this particular report. So here I'm just looking at software. I'm just going to drill down into Primo PDF, and I can look at the machines during the time frame that I'm looking at that it's been installed on. And if it was removed from any machines, I could look at which machines it was removed from. and this can be extremely beneficial when looking at hardware or looking at software. If you're trying to troubleshoot a specific server, that was working yesterday, it's not working today. Well, what has changed between those time frames can really make the troubleshooting process and help you along with finding the root cause of that particular issue. Another report that I like to look at is unused software. One thing to keep in mind is you pick which applications that you're wanting to meter, which applications that you're going to track usage data on. This report alone will pay for CAM. Unused software, this is your opportunity to come back in and take a look at all of your unused applications and harvest those installs back. I've been known many times where I'll ask, I'll tell IT that I need Visio installed on my machine. I have a very specific project and I use it for that one project and then I never use it again, right? So then when TJ comes along, 6 months later after I haven't used it, and she's requesting to have Visio installed, rather than just going and purchasing a new license, you can harvest it back. You can pull that license from my machine and redeploy it to somebody who is actually going to use it. So again, just coming through and, especially those Adobe Creative Cloud, those expensive applications, having that usage data, we find that CAM actually pays for itself when you start to harvest licenses back rather than just purchasing additional licenses. So from CAM reporting, those are kind of the highlights that I like to show there. Here, I'm just going to go into license analytics. Another huge value around Sharewall Asset Manager is that we actually understand Microsoft licensing. I'm going to show you purchasing next. And when we go into purchasing, it's critical to set up your different Microsoft contracts along with what you have purchased, and based on your Microsoft contracts and setting up the different attributes around those contracts, we completely understand your upgrade rights, downgrade rights. Typically you need a master's degree in Microsoft licensing to actually understand whether or not you are compliant with what's deployed within your environment. Here at a glance, based on our Microsoft contracts and our entitlements, we can tell you where you're out of compliance and where you are properly licensed for all of your Microsoft products. Here, one thing that so many people point out is how can I have a surplus of 15 licenses of project and have a deficit of 1? So I can simply drill down into the worksheet here, and I can see that somebody has deployed a retail version of Microsoft Project within my environment. I can drill down in here and take a look at which machine it's installed on. And, at this point, I could either obtain my entitlement, gather my purchasing information, and put that into purchasing so that we are properly licensed, or we could just simply uninstall the retail version and redeploy with our Select Plus agreement or, within our Microsoft contract. And, they can still have Microsoft Project, but then we're going to be properly licensed. For all of your Windows-based servers and, SQL servers, we understand how many, for how many cores that you need, whether or not you're properly licensed. Here, based on my Microsoft agreement, we're licensed for 2 cores on this particular server, and we have unlimited virtual machines allowed to run on this particular Windows server. And I can even drill down further and take a look at the host-guest relationships. So I could actually start to see which virtual machines are running on each of these host machines. So here on this host machine, I can see all of the virtual machines that are currently running on that particular server. We also have SAS Analytics. SAS Analytics, this is going to help you with those SAS applications that don't require an install on your machine. You know, of course, anything that does require an install, Sharewell Asset Manager is easily able to meter and monitor usage and those items, and you know, gather all the information on where it's deployed. However, for things like Salesforce, Office 365 or Box, we have what's called SAS Analytics, where we can actually monitor your usage information of those SaaS applications. And again, it's just another area where you have a potential for a large amount of savings by being properly licensed for these different SaaS applications. You know, here for Salesforce, I can take a look at, you know, we have 325 licenses, but only 232 of those are being used. And I can take a look at what my potential savings is by right-sizing my license for Salesforce. We do this for your Office 365 products as well. So, you know, here I can see nobody's using an E4 license for Office 365. So there's quite a large savings there, since we have 175 licenses that we're paying for. E5, you know, we do have quite a few people using the E5 licenses, but again, by right sizing, there is a big potential for savings. Currently, we have SAS Analytics available for Salesforce, Office 365, and Box. And TJ, I just want to check, have any questions come in? Are we good? I'll take the silence as that we don't have any questions coming in at the moment.
Mike, I was on mute. Yes. Jenny has a question. She's asking, is a client agent needed to be installed on the computer to inventory applications?
To inventory applications, no, you do not have to install the client. We have two ways of inventorying the applications. One is through the agent on your window, and we're talking Windows-based devices here. One is through deploying the agent. The other would be if you do have SCCM deployed, we can use our SCCM connector, and we can bring over the data that SCCM has collected and still continue to normalize all of that software as well. Do you guys, you know, I'm pretty sure that you do have SCCM deployed, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, we do. I just can't, I can't answer to what degree.
To what degree? Okay.
Yeah, but, and Jenny said, thanks, that makes sense now.
Perfect, perfect. No, thank you for the question. And of course, for your Linux, Unix, and Macs, that's all agentless as well. Now here, when I come into my purchasing module, you know, for your Microsoft contracts, it is critical. Here I do have some that are expiring. I can drill down into those different contracts. But we do need to properly understand whether or not you're licensed appropriately for Microsoft products. We do need all the information on the different Microsoft agreements that you have. So we're going to track all of those Microsoft agreements, and along with your entitlements, then it will allow us to truly use the software analytics to understand whether or not you're properly licensed for all of your Microsoft products. Now, probably, you know, one of the most, you know, deploying CAM, Sharewell Asset Manager, it's an easy product to deploy. But what I find is for most implementations, some of them go extremely smooth. But what we need is we need to get all of your purchasing information, all of your historical purchase information to really take advantage of the MI compliant reports, right? So, you know, I work with some organizations that have all of this, you know, within their purchasing tool. And, you know, for some organizations, we could just export that information out and just import it all in. I talk to other organizations and they say that, you know, there's a file cabinet over here and, you know, it's just kind of all over the place, and they have a much more difficult time to, you know, in gathering all their purchasing information. Once it's gathered, it is easy to import all of that in. And here I can even drill down and start to show, within each purchase, the different line items that are included in that, because each PO may have several line items in it. And we're even tracking things like, was it hardware? Was it maintenance for that hardware? Software maintenance? Was it a software upgrade? So again, this is one of the most critical aspects of deploying CAM, is gathering all of that historical purchasing information to import in so that we can properly tell you and you can properly take advantage of the compliant reports. Any other questions, comments, feedback here on CAM?
No questions in chat, but you guys feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions.
All right, so yeah, as things come up, please, feel free to unmute or type in your question. We want to make sure that we do answer all of your questions here. So next, I'm going to go into Sharewell, and I'm just going to quickly pull up the Sharewell CMDB. Within the Sharewell CMDB, here we have all of our different configuration item types, all the different CI types that come out of the box. One thing, as you're, looking to roll out, especially your new CMDB, you're going to want to take a look at each one of these CI types and make sure that they all have the proper attributes. You're going to want to determine which source. Each one of these different CI types can connect to a different source to help feed or enrich the Sharewell CMDB. We may have SCCM. You may have many different CMDBs that you need to connect to populate in one CI type. Even your financial system, we can connect there if we needed to augment data with financial data. After you there we go. I'm just going to drill down into one of my servers and just quickly take a look at, the different information that we're enriching here, at least out of the box.
Mike?
Yep.
Before you move on, Sterling says he has no questions on CAM, but he's curious about the application CIM App and what that offers. So if there's an appropriate time in your presentation to maybe address that MApp for applications, feel free.
All right, perfect. I'm just going to make a quick note of that so I don't forget. All right. So here when I drill down into my servers, we're going to want to make sure that we're selecting the right data source. So many organizations begin to populate or enrich their CMDBs from discovery tools, right? One thing to keep in mind is if we just, if we don't put process behind it, if we don't take a look at people, process, and then technology, your CMDB is going to quickly become outdated. We want to make sure when you're planning for your CMDB that each one of your different configuration item types has a proper life cycle associated with it. Discovery tools can help you find what is currently active, but if we're not, marking these things as retired, or things that go MIA or whatever the case is, if we're not managing these devices, these CI, these configuration items through their entire life cycle, our CMDB is quickly going to become outdated. So it's important to take a look at all of the different attributes that you're collecting and making sure that you have the right attributes for all of the different types of users that are going to be taking advantage of the configuration item data. Once you have enriched the CMDB and you start to have all these CIs, you can even start to connect to event management tools. I'm sure with an organization your size, you have many different event management tools that is scanning the environment and detecting issues on each of your configuration items or services, even applications, right? So you can use these events and collect events around your different configuration items and trigger a process. You can trigger an incident and resolve an incident before users are affected by establishing, by having a mature CMDB and having a mature event management process as well. Here, I can assign appropriate service level agreements to my CIs. I can take a look at what is changing on my configuration items. So these things that we're automatically pulling this data in from discovery tools, we can track what changes, and you can even set up processes to look for unauthorized changes. I've had some organizations that, decide if there's specific attributes around servers or network devices that we detect a change on, we want to raise an alert. We can even go and look at, hey, has there been a change request that's tied to the server that's been authorized within the past, let's just say 5 days. You can obviously adjust those time frames. And if a change, if a change to an attribute is detected for the attributes that you're wanting to monitor, if there is a change associated with this configuration item, we could ignore it and assume that it was an authorized change. But if you don't have a change request connected to it, we could put that onto a dashboard and say, hey, there's potentially an unauthorized change that has occurred against this configuration item. You can also track upstream and downstream relationships. So you can come in and you can manually tie devices together simply by clicking on the link button here, right? So I can link other configuration items from the CMDB to this. And what that can do for you is it can help you perform an impact assessment. When an incident comes in, or if you're making a change request, you can very quickly look at an impact assessment and truly know what is upstream, what is downstream, what else could be affected by this particular change, or if this configuration item was down. Upstream and downstream relationships can automatically be detected as well. We do have service mapping tools. We have DDM tools as well, if that's something that you're interested in. Typically the first step is to build out the CMDB, but when you're ready for a DDM tool, a discovery and dependency mapping tool as well, we're always happy to talk about that as, and assist you with that process as well. Let's see, I know we had a question about software license and tracking software licenses. So right here out of the box, we do have a CI type called software license. And this is what's used by CAM, by Sharewall Asset Manager. When you install the CAM map, this particular configuration item type is enriched from Sharewall Asset Manager around all of your different software applications that are found within your environment. They're even linked from the application to which computers that they're installed on. That's something that the map does for you. Here right out of the box, we do have the different software license keys for this particular application, if you're wanting to track which keys are installed. Now, I know there was a question about the application map. One of the things that I did here last week in preparing for this, I went and searched the Sharewall marketplace for which maps were currently available. And I actually did not find one around applications. So I am curious, is that a map that you've recently found, or is that a map that maybe used to be out there that's no longer out there?
My understanding is that there was a map out there that was built for just applications. And I know that within the CMDB, there is the system type, CI. But yeah, like somebody had mentioned to me that there was a separate application CI map totally dedicated to, tracking applications, whether they be homegrown, like something that you developed in-house that you could enter, or whether it was something that you implemented. And I just thought I'd bring it up to ask you guys if you had any information about it. And if you don't, that's okay. Maybe I misheard.
No, no, no. And you know what? It could have been something that was out there, or maybe I just didn't find it. You know, because I figured that those maps may come up during this presentation, and I wasn't able to find a current one out in the marketplace for that. Doesn't mean that it was there and now it's not, or maybe I just didn't find it. So if you do find one, anybody can feel free to email me, and I'm happy to do some additional research and provide some guidance on that particular map. But you did make a very good point as well with the system CI type. Here, I do find organizations do track. This is an area where you can track your different, a CRM system or your email system, a way of tracking those different applications and all the components, being able to perform a service mapping, right? Here we're just gathering some basic information around the system, but what's really critical here, and when you're looking at these systems, are the different upstream and downstream CIs that help make up that system, right? To be able to know if we're making a change to the system, what other CIs or what CIs are used or make up this particular system. I am curious if this does help with your particular question.
Yeah, no, this is good. Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So I know we have about 5 minutes left here today. And so at this point, I'd just like to kind of open it up for Q&A questions, or anybody want to, or if anybody has any insight on what they're working on, to help mature, or, with the re-implementation of Sharewell. I know TJ does not like that term. But maybe, enhancing or enriching the CMDB. Do you have any projects currently underway, or any thoughts or questions on how to kick off or mature that process?
Yeah, Mike, this is Sterling. I'm the project manager for that effort, and just a high-level update for the entire group here, for a lot of the folks here at UNM, is we're moving forward, and one of the things that we're really excited about is we are looking at all of the additional functionality that has been added into version 10, especially things within CMDB that we can leverage. It's really kind of interesting, the things that we're seeing in version 10 versus version 9.2 that we're on right now. But we're looking at the current state of items in addition to where we want to be in the future, and we want to definitely take advantage of some of these other CIs that exist out of the box. An example would be like licenses, and there are a few others that we are in the evaluation process of right now. But that's kind of where we are, and that's why we're really kind of interested in the whole CMDB kit and caboodle, so to speak. So there you go.
Awesome. Awesome, Sterling. And I'm sure as part of your evaluation, I do find for many organizations, and, and especially organizations that are starting out with their CMDB project, the CI types here, we have a really good start. With version 10, we have made it much easier to create new CI types with new life cycles, which you've always been able to do that within the application. But I am going to say that, with the version that you have running currently, there was more effort than what's involved in creating these new buckets and new types to, with the re-implementation. So, do look at and make sure that you do have the appropriate types based on the configuration items and assets that you're wanting to track.
Yeah, no, it's good food for thought. The other big thing that we're really excited about leveraging is it looks like there's definitely functionality within the new CIs where you can easily have relationships, create relationships between one CI to another CI, or those things are already kind of defined. And that's something we definitely are looking to leverage. So.
Awesome, awesome. So you're looking at that dependency mapping, right? Creating the relationships from each of your CIs so that you can, really start to do an impact analysis or look at what's affected by a particular service or configuration item. That's great. Awesome, awesome. We're coming up here at the bottom of the half hour, so really want to thank all of you for your time and attention today, and for the great questions that we've had come through. I'll turn it over to Jeremy and then to TJ to close this out.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it. Appreciate everybody's time today. Are there any closing thoughts or comments or feedback for Mike in the presentation? All right, great. Well, thank you very much for your time today. If you do have any follow-ups, please filter those to Elaine and TJ. And or if you have Mike's and my information, feel free to contact us directly. And have a great rest of the week. And we'll hopefully talk soon.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks very much.
Awesome.
Mike.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Mike, that was
TJ.
an awesome presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to put it together and help us have a better understanding of how the CMDB works in current Sharewell.
Oh,
And thank you, Jeremy,
fantastic.
for being here. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Let us know how we can help.
Yes, and Mike, your son's turning 10 soon.
Yes, his birthday was last Saturday.
Okay, well, happy birthday to your son.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Take care.
Have a great rest of the day.
You as well. Bye, everyone. Thank you for your attendance.
Bye.